A couple weeks ago, we had Woody Marks' breakout game. Then it was Bill. And of course, last week, Cam Scattaboo. I mean, all these mid to late round rookie running backs are going off. I mean, Cam Scattaboo must start now, right?
All right. Hold on. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I don't even know. What do you call that?
All right, well, maybe we should actually check the matchups and the data and figure out who is really worth starting and who is not. That's what we'll do. We'll go over all the running backs you need to know about for Week 7. This week, we have 2 teams on bye. It's the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. Now, there are still a handful of running backs that are must start regardless of matchup. If you got these guys, just go ahead and put them in your lineup right now. Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, and Devon Achane. Before we get to the first matchup, reminder, we're on our way still to 100K. Appreciate everyone who has subscribed this year. If you're watching this channel and you still haven't hit that subscribe button, what are you waiting for? Help us out. We're trying to help you win in fantasy. The first game of the week is going to be the Steelers at the Bengals on Thursday night. Probably not a game that's going to be dominated by the running backs, but we got to know, are these guys worth it or not? Let's start with the Steelers. You had Jaylen Warren, and now you got probably a lot more Kenneth Gainwell than you would have ever expected.
Exactly. This is a great spot, right? Against the Bengals. We know this is, you want to start your running backs, but this is kind of concerning now. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell, only 5 less carries, 4 more catches than Jaylen Warren. What? Yeah, I don't know. This is frustrating, but it is a good matchup, so I think you can flex both of these guys this week, but don't expect big games from either because, again, of the usage.
Yeah, and this is just how Arthur Smith rolls, right? Whether it's running back or tight end or receiver, whatever. Doesn't like to be predictable. Thanks, Art. Got you figured out. Look, I don't even care almost what the matchup is. It's pretty good, right? Bengals run defense isn't, but I'm not starting Kenneth Gainwell, just not enough here. And I almost just want to say sit Jaylen Warren as well. I mean, he always kind of lives in that flex tier for me. I guess he still does because of the matchup, but I mean, where's the ceiling? Speaking of no ceiling, Chase Brown, not been worth that second or third round pick, whatever anybody might have invested in him. Now, we did see some glimmer of hope, I guess, with the passing game with Joe Flacco under center last week, but didn't exactly revive Chase Brown.
No, and the real worry here is we saw quite a bit of Samaje Perine last week. Not only that, Pittsburgh's defense, remember early in the season, they looked terrible. They've gotten better. They're now 23rd toughest versus running backs. I can't do it with Chase Brown. Every week I'm maybe you could. No, I can't do it anymore. What is the upside here? This is he's got to fall in the end zone to give you even a serviceable game at this point.
Yeah, and he's not doing that. Look, I'll just say Chase Brown has now become kind of Jaylen Warren-esque to me. He's a flex only because of maybe some receiving, some pass catching like he could do, right? A little bit of a floor. And I'm not too worried about Perine. I think a lot of that was game script, right? They were playing from behind, and this is a better matchup. So he's still kind of like Warren, though, just barely a flex. I mean, the good news is last week, he did at least average over 4 yards per carry, so there's that. This week, we're going to be treated to another game in London. That's right. The Rams at the Jaguars this time. The Jags are no stranger to London. They played twice there last year. So let's start with the Rams backfield. It looks like this week it's Kyren Williams.
Yeah, it looks like it's Kyren Williams. Blake Corum hurt. I mean, we don't know if he's going to play, but even if he does, are we worried about this at all? No. I think Kyren's got to be a strong start this week. Jags' run defense does not scare me at all. And look, Puka probably going to miss this game too, so they might lean on Kyren even more.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. We don't know for sure. It doesn't sound like Puka's going to go, at least at this stage of the week. Yeah, he didn't exactly demolish the Baltimore defense, but at the same time, that was just a weird game. I don't know what was going on. I think Puka leaving early just kind of threw everything off, but he's definitely got touchdown upside. It's another great spot for him. I think he's got to be a strong start. Now, the Jags side, you got Travis Etienne. Tootin has really not done a whole lot lately to be fantasy relevant. At the same time, neither has Etienne. The last 2 games, he's given us nothing, single-digit PPR fantasy points.
Yeah, but he's had 2 really tough matches, right? Chiefs and Seahawks, 2 of the toughest run defenses. The Rams, not quite to that level. We just saw Derrick Henry, had a very nice game against them, excluding touchdowns. So I think Travis Etienne is totally fine here. I'm going to say solid, higher end solid. I feel good. I think it's a bounce back week for Travis Etienne.
Yeah, Etienne is one of those backs who well, he doesn't get you a touchdown, which is never guaranteed, or a long run, he disappoints, right? He's not a guy who consistently churns out yardage. He needs that big play, and without it, I mean, you're left wanting a lot more. I will say this Rams defense isn't like fearsome, but at the same time, they've played some really good running backs. I know I talked about this in the waiver wire video as far as the Rams pass defense. They faced a lot of easy quarterbacks. They faced the best running backs in the game so far. Saquon Barkley, they held him to 46 yards. Jonathan Taylor held him to 76 yards, and CMC 57 yards. I mean, sure, Etienne could rip off that big run or score, but I think he's just more like a high upside flex. Now, before we move on, got to remind you that this is a time to try Underdog if you haven't yet. Talked about that Thursday matchup, Jaylen Warren at running back. Look, all he needs is to get you a yard, and you win that pick. That's right, they give you a free pick here if you sign up for the first time on Underdog. Use code ENDGAME, because when you check out there, you get the gimme pick, you also get a deposit match, and you get $100 in bonus funds added to your account as soon as you play $5 towards any picks. And don't forget, it is Boostober, so there's profit boosts every day this month. All right, now let's get to the main Sunday slate. And it'll start with the Eagles at the Vikings. Minnesota coming off of their bye. Eagles, looks like they basically took the week off. They didn't really show up for that Thursday matchup against the Giants. So, like, what do we expect here? And by the way, I can't remember the last time we actually had to discuss Saquon Barkley, because it looks like he's not just a no-brainer and must start anymore.
I mean, maybe he's not a no-brainer must start anymore, but he's still a strong start to me. Like, I would have a hard time benching Saquon Barkley. Not to mention, Minnesota is a run funnel, much worse against the run than the pass. And you got to think the Eagles have to get back to who they are and just run the football here and not try to appease A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and these diva wide receivers. So I'm going to say Saquon strong start.
Yeah, this is like the same type of argument we have like Jamar Chase, who you had a lot more reasons to be worried about with like Jake Browning and Joe Flacco and the state of the offensive line. And you're like, look, it's Jamar Chase. You just start him and you're glad you did the last couple of weeks. It's Saquon Barkley. I can't think of any running back other than maybe CMC, who I'm like, okay, I can sit Saquon Barkley for him. And look, maybe it has something to do with this. They're saying he's dealing with soreness last week. You know, it was a Thursday game. They had a little extra time to recover. I think he'll be fine. And on the Minnesota side, it's been all Jordan Mason. I mean, he's the only guy who's really fantasy relevant, at least at this point. What do you think about him going against this Eagles front that, let's face it, just got run over by Cam Scatterboo?
They did. I think a big thing here will be Jalen Carter, whether he plays or not. Remember, he was ruled out right before the game last week, so you're going to have to pay attention to that. But Jordan Mason is really all they have, and I'm not really worried about game script here. Like, I don't think this Eagles offense, even if they do lean on Saquon, can, put it on the Vikings defense and just run away with this game. So I think Jordan Mason this week is solid.
Yeah, so one thing I found that's kind of interesting here, Jordan Mason, I mean, he's been solid all year, right? And at times he's looked really good, really efficient, and, last couple of weeks, not so much. He's one of those running backs that feel is pretty game script dependent, because he doesn't do a lot in the passing game, and so if they're running from ahead, he'll be efficient, he'll get more carries. If they're behind, that's not good for Mason. So honestly, I hate to say, this really depends which Eagles team shows up. I think they'll be better. They're still not like, defense is just going to roll over. Let's not get carried away by the Cam outburst last week. So I think Mason is solid, risky solid though, because again, I could see them coming from behind, having to, at least in this game.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
All right, now we have the Patriots taking on the Titans under new management. We'll see if that makes any sort of difference. I kind of wish the Patriots offense was under new management, because we're still getting way too much Ramondre Stevenson and not enough Travion Henderson. Do you agree?
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I agree. I'd like to see more Travion Henderson, of course, but I haven't even been impressed by Travion Henderson this year, to be honest. This run game is just terrible, whoever it is. But it is the Titans, so it is a good matchup. And look, Ramondre, I guess, is the guy, and if somebody's going to score, it's probably going to be Ramondre and not Henderson. So I'll say Ramondre only because it's a good matchup. A risky flex, not even one of my favorite flexes. Travion Henderson, it's just not happening. It's just not. We got to let it go for a while here.
Agree, we do. Somehow, Ramondre, despite being one of the worst rushers in terms of efficiency this season, more than doubled Henderson's snaps last week. He got them 18 yards on 13 carries. And they just keep feeding him the ball. So I'm basically boycotting this backfield until there's a change made here. I mean, there's no reason to start Ramondre unless you're hoping he scores a touchdown, which you could say that about a lot of other guys. And yeah, it's obviously not happening yet for Henderson. So yeah, I'm just going to not think about this. As much as we'd like not to think about the Titans offense, we still have to. I mean, Tony Pollard has been doing his part, but is it enough?
It's not enough, and honestly, last week I did not like what I saw. Tyjae Spears, this split got very close in terms of snaps, touches, everything, and now we're gonna have a new interim head coach here, and they're going against the Patriots, who are one of the toughest against running backs. I'm sitting both these guys this week.
I think probably they'll still try to lean on the run game. I'm gonna go from the volume angle that Pollard could be a flex. You know, the Patriots, I don't feel like are gonna be up big. You know, they were behind all game, as they have been a lot of games here, the Titans, and so that's why we saw a lot more Tyjae Spears in the passing downs. But I mean, Pollard is again one of those like barely a flex, just because I feel like they're still going to give him a decent amount of carries. All right, Panthers at Jets. I mean, we have basically a superstar running back in this matchup. It is not Breece Hall. It's Rico Dowdle, who is basically demolishing everybody the past 2 weeks in fantasy. But of course, we can't have nice things for too long, so possibly Chuba Hubbard will come back this week. And then if so, what do you do?
This is going to be tricky. I mean, you got to think. I said after that first week, I'm like, come on. Like, it was one game. Like, doesn't mean they're going to give him more. But after last week, yeah, I think we're going to see, even if Chuba plays, I don't think Chuba's just going to be the guy anymore. Like, Rico's been too good. But of course, if Chuba does play, that is going to cap his upside to some degree. And this is not the Dolphins. This is not the Cowboys. This is the Jets. And the Jets defense has looked better lately. But still, I got to say Rico is solid. You got to keep him in your lineup and find out. If he busts this week, he busts. Oh, well, look what he's done for you the last 2 weeks. And then Chuba, I mean, even if he plays, I can't consider him more than a flex because, again, I don't see how he gets more carries or more work than Rico after what we've seen the last 2 weeks.
If there's a guy who's earned touches, it's Rico. And look, I just say this. If Chuba is out again, he's almost a must start. I don't feel like this is going to be the same as the Cowboys game, right? You know, there's no revenge here. It's the Jets, right? It's the Jets. I'm going to start Rico. Now, if Chuba does play, he's still solid. You have to just take what he gives you. You have to find out. No, it may not be 200 yards. It could still be 100 yards, and that's still better than most running backs out there. And if Chuba plays, again, it's going to be very limited here, so just a flex. After last week, you may not want to touch the Jets offense with a 10-foot pole, but Breece Hall has still have to have relevance here. And look, Garrett Wilson sounds like he's not playing, so is this possibly good for Breece Hall?
I mean, it should be, but is it really good for Breece Hall? And look, one thing about the Panthers this year, like we think of the Panthers, terrible run defense. They've been pretty good against the run this year. I mean, they just held Javonte Williams to his worst game of the season. Like, don't overlook this run defense, and this Jets offense is terrible. But Breece is the guy. He's getting all the touches. Maybe they'll lean on him more if Garrett Wilson is out. I'm going to say solid, but like lower end solid here.
Yeah, as wretched as the Jets have looked and are, you can't ignore a running back who's getting over 90% of the share here in the backfield ever since Braylon Allen has been out the last 2 games. It's pretty much all Breece. He does have that big play upside, so I think he's got to be at least solid. Dolphins at Browns. Okay, if there's a Dolphin you still feel good about, it's Devon Achane. He continues to roll. I think you almost feel better about Quinshon Judkins, and we can't just say he's a no-brainer, but like this week against the Dolphins, he's pretty much as close to a brainless start as possible.
Yeah, you throw last week out the window. This is a great spot for Judkins. Of course, the Dolphins have allowed 5 straight running backs to go for 100 or more scrimmage yards. And we're talking about guys like Kimani Vidal, not even like elite running backs here. So, yeah, Quinshon Judkins this week has to be a strong start.
Yeah, this week, Judkins, I mean, I feel like we almost could just say must start. Other than those 5 guys I think that we have as the no doubt must starts, there's probably no running back I want on my lineup more than Judkins against this Dolphins defense. Next up, let's talk Saints at Bears. All right, a lot of talk about Alvin Kamara, not his performance, but will he get traded? No, that has been shut down. He's still there, but Kendre Miller is also still there to impact him.
Yeah, this is, again, another frustrating backfield here. Another one where it's a great matchup against the Bears. So you're kind of like, I want to start my running backs against the Bears. But these guys are both kind of capping each other's ceiling. I will say Kamara this week, I'll say a good flex start because he does catch passes. He kind of does have that home run ability to some degree these days. You know, and it is a good matchup against the Bears. Kendre Miller, I'll say he's flex, not a good flex, but just a flex because, again, against the Bears, he could find the end zone here. But, man, these guys are both capping each other's ceiling right now.
Yeah, exactly. This is the worst kind of backfield where you don't feel good about either guy necessarily. Something has to happen here, but right now it's not. So, look, this Bears defense heading into week 6, the worst run defense in terms of yards per carry allowed. They tightened up a little bit, this past week. Maybe they figured some things out in the bye. It's still great, but it's not a good situation here. I think both guys are just flexes and only for floor. I just don't see the ceiling for either one. Now, as far as that Bears offense, well, look, they didn't fix all their problems during the bye week, but one thing that definitely looks better is DeAndre Swift. And so, do you have to move him up now in your estimations?
I mean, you have to feel better. Not only that, it's the Saints, and they're at home this week. Like, the Saints is not a tough run defense at all. If he's going to get this kind of usage and actually look this good, I think we got to put him in solid. I can't go too crazy here. I'm still going to say risky solid. I'm not ready to go all in after one good game, but you got to feel better.
Yeah, it's crazy. Swift was averaging, 3.3 yards per carry coming into week 6, and all of a sudden 100 yards on the ground, and took that one pass play to the house. Again, don't overreact to this, but this definitely is encouraging, especially if they're going to continue to try to run the ball, which I'm sure they can do against the Saints. All right, here's a better choice. The Raiders are taking on the Chiefs in Arrowhead, but man, Ashton Genty looks legit, but this is definitely not a great matchup for him.
No, he looks legit. We know he is legit, but I still have a little bit of concerns here. Like, the offensive line still doesn't look great, and this Chiefs defense, while not an absolute shutdown run defense, is pretty good. But that being said, I mean, he's a talented player. He's getting great volume. He looks good. I think he still has to be a strong start this week.
I think people who played fantasy for more than a season or two understand when I say this. Genty is really close to a must start. I'm putting in the strong category, but I don't feel great about him this week because on the road, Kansas City, that offense is starting to look like themselves. The Raiders are not very good. Geno Smith does not look any better. They could be running from behind. That's usually bad for a running back, but Genty has that explosiveness and he is catching passes out of the backfield. So it may not be his best game, but I think you still have to keep him in your lineup. And on the other side, the Chiefs running backs. Is this any different than last week?
I think we're starting to see it. I think we're starting to see Pacheco inch closer, running more routes, playing more snaps. I wish he wasn't getting vultured by Kareem Hunt at the goal line, but I think it's getting close. I'm not ready to go crazy with Pacheco or anything, though, but I think you can flex him this week because it is the Raiders. Kareem Hunt, I mean, this is just, you're praying for a goal line plunge here.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Kareem Hunt, at least he has a chance to score. Pacheco has 0 touchdowns this season. They're not even giving him the chance to score. I can't put that in my lineup. Not only 0 touchdowns, but 35.7 yards per game. There's really no reason, in my mind, to start him even against the Raiders, and the same thing with Kareem Hunt. Next up, the Colts are taking on the Chargers. You have every reason to start Jonathan Taylor. He's looking like an absolute beast, maybe on the way to his best season. And then that Chargers backfield. I mean, look, we figured anything could happen here, right? We didn't know Haskins, Vidal, who was going to look better, who was going to get used more. And, it was pretty clear who it was.
Yeah, it was pretty clear it was Kimani Vidal. If there's any question about who you want in this backfield, I think it got answered. Look, there's risk that maybe it's not the case again this week, but I think you got to take a shot here. Colts run defense doesn't scare me. I think Vidal's got to be solid this week. He looked good, catches passes. Haskins, a sit.
Kind of deep dove into the numbers for Kimani Vidal in the waiver wire video, right? All the reasons, why he was successful. Just say this real quick. He got a 75% running back share in this game. I don't think that was by design, right? They started out with Haskins. Vidal was just better. It doesn't mean it's going to happen again. Let's point back to the Michael Carter thing. Not exactly apples to apples, but still. Don't just assume Vidal is going to run for 100 yards again this week is all I'm saying. He is going to be a solid option. Just, buyer beware here. All right, here we go. It's time to talk about Scatterboo and the Giants. Unfortunately, going on the road to take on the Denver Broncos. So, what we're here to do, Chris. It's to give people the facts, right? The stats, to break it down in plain terms. How should we feel about Cam Scatterboo in fantasy this week?
Well, this week, I don't think you should feel great about Cam Scatterboo. Look, I love Cam Scatterboo. I talked this guy up all off season. He was one of my favorite running back prospects, and now I'm seeing exactly what I expected to see. But let's not forget the fact that last week he scored 3 touchdowns against a banged up Eagles defense in a game the Giants were winning pretty much throughout. Now they got to go on the road against this Denver defense where I don't think the Giants are going to be winning this game. I don't think the Giants are going to be able to move the ball like they did against the Eagles. Look, Scatterboo still gets the volume. Scatterboo can still run through tackles. He still has a chance to score. But I think this week he's solid, but riskier solid.
Have to agree here. As great as he looked last week, again, a lot of those points were because of the touchdowns. Touchdowns are definitely not sticky week to week. He's almost surely not going to score 3 touchdowns, if even 2. He may not score 1. I know it's crazy to think, but look, this is one of the worst matchups possible on the road, Mile High. That Denver defense, you saw what they did to the Jets. And look, the Giants are not all of a sudden some juggernaut. That was one game. So yes, he is still a solid start, but don't go crazy and put him over guys like Quinshon Judkins. Now on the Denver side here, still a little messy, sometimes disappointing. J.K. Dobbins is still the lead though, coming off an okay game against a bad team in the Jets here. What do you expect this week against the other New York team?
I expect a big bounce back at home against this Giants run defense that has been terrible this year. I mean, look, I know Saquon didn't have a big game last week, but he was ripping off explosive runs when they actually gave him the ball. I think at home, again, like I said, I think the Broncos are going to win this game pretty comfortably. I don't think the Giants are going to push them like they pushed the Eagles. I think Dobbins a strong start this week.
Feels like a good bounce back week for Denver. I know even though they won that game, it really doesn't feel like a win based on that. I don't think anybody won coming out of that game. Look, J.K. Dobbins is still a very solid start. I'll put him on the high end of the solid tier. All right, now we got the Packers taking on the Cardinals. And Josh Jacobs is definitely a must start here. And there's that Arizona backfield. Let's go from Cam to Bam. Bam Knight, who we found out right before the game was all of a sudden the starting running back. Look, I know everyone's like, oh, Bam Knight scored a touchdown. That is all he did. And Michael Carter, of course, didn't do a whole lot. Do you feel like this is going to be any different this week?
Probably not. I mean, one of these guys could score, but that's really all you're banking on against a tough Packers defense. No, thank you.
No, I want to avoid this whole situation. Want to make it go away. And again, Bam got that really short touchdown just like I did the week before because they happened to get to the 1 yard line. Maybe it was the 2. I don't remember. You don't want to bank on that. This is basically like Kareem Hunt, just on a worse team. All right, next let's talk Commanders at Cowboys. All right, so maybe Bill didn't follow up with another huge game, but he's still the guy in that backfield, right? There's that. Maybe the Commanders are just a little healthy overall this week, and oh yeah, maybe they get to face the Cowboys.
Yeah, this is another great matchup for him. He's still the guy here. I mean, maybe we went a little overboard last week against the Bears, but I still can't really sit Bill this week against this Cowboys defense. I think he's got to at least be solid this week.
Yeah, he definitely should be, and there is upside for that big game. I mean, he does break off big runs. He, of course, has that touchdown upside. So let's just say a pretty good, solid start here. And on the other hand, you got Javonte Williams. Feels like it was finally his first down game of the season, even though the Cowboys still scored a lot of points. Still a good spot for him this week.
Yeah, look, nobody goes off every week of the season. It's fine. Don't freak out here or anything. Javonte Williams, probably every week of the season, going to be solid or a strong start. I will say Commanders, not bad against the run, so I'll say solid this week.
And the thing that also makes Javonte so valuable is, unlike what we thought coming into the season, or at least we didn't really know how this would shake out, he's the guy. He's getting a huge RB share in that backfield. It's all him, right? Nobody else is touching the ball. So the way this offense is rolling, he's got to be a very solid start too. The Falcons taking on the 49ers this week. The good news is if you have the starting running back for either team, you've got one of the best RBs in fantasy because, of course, Bijan and CMC are still no doubters. Then with the Bucs at the Lions on Monday night, you also have a must start in Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, as far as Tampa, it looks like, again, no Bucky. I mean, they declared this pretty quickly this week, which makes you think now Rachaad White still has multi-week value. But let's just look at the here and now. Week 7 at Detroit. How do you feel?
I mean, you got to feel good about Rachaad White. No, he's not, racking up crazy yardage totals. He's not catching a zillion passes. But he scored 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks, and he's always got a chance to score a touchdown in this Bucs offense. And he does catch enough passes. And not scared of the Lions defense. He's got to be solid.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have that explosive ability like some of these other running backs, right? He's not that breakaway speed type of guy, but he's getting the volume. He's, of course, scoring touchdowns. On the road to Detroit, you know what? With all these injuries to the wide receivers, now Ibuka too, it's like they're going to have to give Rachaad White a lot of volume. I worry that Detroit scores a lot of points here, and, Tampa's going to have to pass a lot. But the good news is Rachaad White is a very good pass-catching running back, so I think he's got a super high floor with a pretty decent ceiling. Now, I'm not sure how to feel, honestly, about Monty this week. He took a step back last week. Okay, fine, tough matchup, whatever. But this Tampa Bay run defense is pretty legit.
Yeah, Monty's actually becoming pretty easy this year, I feel like. I think we've done a pretty good job predicting Monty so far. It's like, tough defense? Yeah, you probably don't want to start him if you can help it. Bad defense? Go ahead and fire him up. This is another tough run defense, Vita Vea in the middle there. I mean, look, he can always score here, so I'm going to say lower end solid. I don't think I can really ever drop him lower than that, but he's very risky this week in this matchup.
Exactly. It's odd that, used to say, well, he's just always kind of solid. But now he's been a lot more volatile, very game strip dependent, matchup dependent. And so, sure, they could be running ahead, but it's not necessarily going to mean that they're going to be running efficiently. You know what I mean? I think he's just a flex here because without a touchdown, I bet you're going to be disappointed. And the second Monday night game, again, I don't know why they keep doing this. The Texans are going to take on the Seahawks. All right, so Texans coming off their bye. Do we see anything different between the Nick Chubb, Woody Marks timeshare?
Probably not. Nick Chubb still the lead back. Woody Marks sprinkled in, pass catching back here. This is not this is actually a tough matchup. Seahawks very tough against running backs. I'm sitting both these guys. This feels like touchdown or bust for both of them.
Yeah, Seahawks still one of the toughest run defenses, allowing the fewest yards per carry, barely over 3. At Nick Chubb, I can still sit. I did talk about Woody Marks as a decent streamer, a pickup if he was dropped on waiver wire. Went into the details on that already in the waiver video because of the matchup. Seattle gives up a ton, the most by far, receptions to running backs. Remember the whole thing of Woody Marks, he's just a passing down back? I mean, this plays into his favor. Look, there's no guarantee here, not a super high ceiling because Chubb is still going to be used, but I think Marks might actually do something this week. And then I feel like we saved the worst for last if you're a fantasy owner of either Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet. I think we have pretty definitive proof at this point in the season that this split is not going away.
It's not going away. The Seahawks keep winning. I don't understand it. I saw the stat today. Zach Charbonnet dead last among qualified running backs in yards per carry. Yet he somehow gets more carries than Kenneth Walker every week. This is as annoying as it gets. This is a tough matchup against the Texans. I almost want to just say sit both of these guys, but Kenneth Walker could rip off a long touchdown. Zach Charbonnet could fall into the end zone. They're both risky flexes.
I almost did say sit for both of these because it's so aggravating. I mean, Charbonnet, it's really touchdown or bust. Again, all these guys I've been talking about, they could fall in the end zone, the Bam Knights, the Kareem Hunts. Put Charbonnet in there, 2.6 yards per carry. Why does he keep getting the ball? But he's going to keep getting it, and that's why I think Kenneth Walker is barely a flex option. He's had exactly 10 carries, not only the last 2 games, but in half of the games this season. You just can't be productive if you're only getting barely double-digit carries and only one catch, exactly one catch for 5 straight games. That's not a ceiling, and so only because I know Kenneth Walker is actually a good running back, unlike Charbonnet. And he could rip off that long run. He could score a touchdown, hypothetically, but barely a flex. All right, there's everything you need to know about the running back landscape for Week 7. You know we're going to have you covered at every position as well. Don't forget to check out this week's playlist.